Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are out there in the world. It's time for another wonderful, riveting episode of SoundTraxx Sound Bites. This is our train talk from milepost 141, sound discussion, blog, post, podcast. That was the word I was looking for. Momentary lapse of cerebral activity. But anyway, this episode, obviously you noticed the vacant chair next to me. Norman is no longer working with SoundTraxx. He decided to run off and light up stages on cruise ships. So it's just going to be me by myself. For those of you guys new to the podcast, my name is George Bogotug. My primary function with the company here has been with sales. And I go out and do sales with shows around the country, doing presentations, setting up trade show booths and getting to meet many of you folks out there, as well as dealing with the retailers here at the office. I'll be on the phone with them, making sure they're apprised of any new information, answering any questions they may have, things like that. So I've been around the block a minute or two. It's been 16 great years working here at SoundTraxx. There's many times I don't feel like I've worked a day at all. So it's actually quite entertaining and enjoyment. For me, as a lifelong model railroader myself, I don't feel like I've been working, just helping out fellow friends out there. And that's one of the things I enjoy about doing this, either the podcasts, the videos, or actually being on the phone helping answer questions for you folks, because I do enjoy doing this. And so, you know, they always say don't make your hobby your career. I kind of enjoy it. So it's kind of a different perspective on everything. So it's not like I'm building models all day long. I'm usually not. This is about the most amount of time I get to play with a model during my time here. But most of the time I'm usually on the phone answering questions and helping other folks figure out how to run their models. So when I get home, I can still run my models and be a break from answering the phone, selling widgets on the phones to retailers, things like that, all around the country. So with that, we're going to talk a little bit about some of my latest projects. Now, as we've talked about in some of the past blogs, you've seen some of these models come up in discussion. And these are three of my GP38s that I have from various different manufacturers. These two are Athearn Genesis, and then this one is a very old, right after Walthers took over, a Proto 2000 that I've upgraded and installed a BlueNami. I think we talked about this one on one of the podcasts, but if not, it's definitely an interesting video or an interesting subject because it does have some slight variations in the details. Most notably, for example, this is a cast plastic fan on top of it, whereas these are etched metal, so they're more visible, more see-through. But these were released well after this particular model, so that's an easy upgrade. It's on my to-do list, but as we all know how to-do lists go, they'll get done eventually. But one of the things I had to do in this particular model was we had to cut down a lot of the weight. So I had to come in and mill down across the top here and then cut down over here. So right now I've got two cube speakers sitting here underneath the radiator fans, and then inside here I have a Nix Trains Decoder Buddy and a BlueNami 21 pin plugged into that. And then of course I have all the lights attached. I've got my front class lights, front number boards, rear class lights. Then of course we have our ground lights and then a headlight and backup light. Doing pretty much the standard installation that I've done in a lot of things where we put the LED right behind the light. Now, on these particular models, the number boards actually had a light pipe that would go behind it to illuminate the light. And the way this was designed inside, there were two light bulbs one would sit right in front of the headlight, and then there was a little shield, and the second one would shine here. And the way that it worked was that the light emanating from the side then would allegedly bounce in this pipe and then aim forward and come out the end where the number board was. And because it was a 3-volt light and also illuminating from the side rather than the head end, the light was dimmer in that regard versus the 1.5 volt bulb that was behind the light castings. But what I did was I took that all apart and took those light pipes and cut them short, and then drilled a little hole in the back of it and just stuck a micro 0402 wired LED that I get online, that stuck it behind the number boards and the headlight castings. And then the class lights were actually cast open already, and then they had a little clear piece of plastic in it, so I literally just had to put the LED on the inside of it and then put it together. Now once I glued that LED in place, then I'll tack glue it with a little bit of cyanoacrylate so that it holds it where I want it. Then once that's dry and the LED is pretty secure where it is, then what I'll do is I'll take some of the microscale crystal clear and paint over it and create a blob to kind of enclose that LED to make sure it holds in place. And this is where it takes a little bit of time, because once that's dry, then I come back over and paint it with silver. And I don't know how much this really makes a difference, but in my eyes, sometimes I can see the reflection of the silver paint to simulate that reflector that's actually inside the light bulb. So I just go ahead and do it anyway. And then once that's done, then I'll paint over it with black as a way to seal it up so that you don't get that unrealistic glow inside the model. Especially if you're doing things like class lights where you have glowing underneath the model because that light is so bright, or at least visible, that it shines it down. So then once that's done, then you put the model back, you put those lenses back into the housings, and then once you're done with that, then you take that and put it into the model and then wire it up to, either in this case it was the Decoder Buddy. Now in these two cases here I used our BlueNami P&P, and then I just added the resistors onto the decoders for the LEDs. Now I know we get a lot of questions, why do you not add resistors on your decoders already? Well, we did that once upon a time in our original Tsunami product line. We had the BW1000 and the IM1000s, and I believe there was the KT1000 also that had pre-made resistors built into the decoder. Well, what happened was we had a handful of folks that thought it was perfect and it was great. They put it in, just wire the LED and move on with their life. But then there was another group of people who said, wow, those LEDs are too dim, or those LEDs are not bright enough, or whatever the case is. And so what would happen is then they would go in and buy the universal ones and then put their own resistors. And so we actually, when we were building the next generation, the Tsunami 2, we actually had a discussion about that, and we decided to leave the resistors off of the board because that lets you, the user, decide which LED board or which resistor you want for your LED so that you can adjust the brilliance. Now we also did include brilliance registers so that you can actually adjust things like, for example, going back to the number boards, I can select an on-off brilliance 1, on-off brilliance 2 lighting effect that I can actually adjust the brilliance using a CV rather than the resistor value. But the overall resistor value is still, again, up to you, because when it comes to LEDs, LEDs are more current sensitive as opposed to voltage sensitive like a light bulb. And so when if you actually sat and did the math with what an LED would be, you'd actually end up using something like a 470 or a 560 resistor, and again based on your track voltage. But because LEDs are current sensitive, which means they just need current flowing, you can use a much higher resistor and still get the light to light. So even with these micro LEDs, if I use 1,000 ohm or a 3.3K, which is 3,300 ohms, you still get that LED will still illuminate, albeit at different brilliances. There are some cases, and some of you guys out there have seen my HO scale Bachmann General that I've upgraded from their factory install and added a whole bunch of detail parts, some scratch builds, some not, a bunch of cow scale parts. But anyway, in 1863, they didn't have sealed beam headlights, so that light would not be quite as bright as, say, a light bulb on a diesel engine today. So with that LED, I actually used a 7,500 ohm or a 7.5K resistor, and the light still lights up, but it's much dimmer. And so when I get that, what I chose on that one was an ash pan light, so it simulates that oil lamp. So there's a little bit of flicker in it, but not a lot. It's not like an aggressive firebox flicker, but what it does is it knocks that brilliance down so that it doesn't appear quite as bright as, say, something on a sealed beam. So if I was to claim in my model world in 1978, they restored the General back to the way it was when it ran in 1860, including the oil lamp, then I would have a more realistic glow and appearance to that light next to the bright lights of, say, our modern diesels. So it gives you some flexibility, and that's kind of why we chose to do that. So yes, you'll still want to use the resistors. But when it comes to the LEDs, even Nick's Decoder Buddy has two options. You have a 1K version of the Decoder Buddy, and then you have a 2.2K version of the Decoder Buddy. And again, it involves brilliance of the LEDs. So he's giving you options to pre-regulate his circuit board with different resistor values. Now, I typically use the 1000 ohm, just because that's typically what I use on most of my models anyway, is the 1000 ohm, but you do have an option. So it just kind of illustrates that there are choices out there. Everybody has a different view. And part of the reasoning is that even with our brilliance CVs, I've been to layouts where people will tell me, man, look at how bright that light is. Isn't that awesome? And then I've had the same people tell me that same light is, oh my God, look at how bright that is. It's burning my retina. So this allows you as the user to be able to adjust what resistor value you want, what effect you're going for, and then the decoder can then fine tune that effect to make sure that you get the proper brilliance that you're looking for. So that kind of gives you a little illustration into that. Now, the one thing I do want to discuss here is, with our BlueNami, I've seen a lot of folks look at it, they think it's neat, but they're hesitant to try it. And I want to show you here, partially using the models that are here in front of me, to just really show you just how easy it is to use the app. Now in front of me today, I have the brand new version of the Android consisting version of the BlueNami app. And we're actually testing this, and as of this recording, hasn't been publicly released, but will be released in the next few days from this recording. So by the time you're seeing this, you'll be able to see this and be able to download the latest version of the BlueNami app for Android. Now, there's a lot of cool things that are built into this Android version that aren't in the Apple, and eventually will be upgraded with the Apple version as well. But some of the things with the BlueNami app, for example, I've got 3 GP38s. So what I can do is I could wire up the models with the same lights and set up one locomotive the way I want it. Then I can do a CV backup, and what that'll do is in the app, it will actually store your CV settings. Then I can turn this one on, copy loco, boom, in a matter of seconds, just about 5 seconds or 7 seconds, something like that. Now I have 2 locos virtually the same with each their own unique address. And then when I put the third one on the track, copy loco, boom, now I've got this loco consist running in a matter of seconds. Then I can sit there and take the locomotives, put them on the track, and get away and run my locomotives and spend my time running my trains rather than spending hours either having to fiddle with CVs for each individual locomotive, or I can spend the time running my trains instead of having to spend hours in front of a computer downloading sound files and software and all that stuff into the decoder, and then sitting on the computer or having to watch TV while it takes 45 minutes to an hour to download. But really, one of the things I wanted to show you is this consisting. Now, I will be 100% honest with you. I do not know how to screen record on this tablet yet, as of this moment in time. So you're going to have to kind of trust me, because I won't be able to show you a picture of the screen of what I'm doing here around me. But what I'm going to do is I've got 2031 in the lead. I've got 2026 here in the middle, and then 2121 here at the end. Now, I'm also going to turn on my backup camera, because there's some things I want you to see in this. So you can see the app is sitting here, and you can see that I've got Loco 2121, then this one is 2026, and then this one over here is 2031. So what I want to do is I want to show you how easy it is to consist these guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with 2031. We're going to claim that one as my lead. So here in my app, I just need to make sure he's facing forward so that I know which direction of travel is going to be the orientation of the locomotive. So he's going to be in forward. So then over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this chain link. So I'm going to take this over here and just I'm going to show you the chain link. And I'm getting a light glare, so my apologies on that. But you see consist group, off, A, B, C, or D. And that's telling me that I have up to 4 consists of any number of locomotives I can run from this device. The consist number is A, B, C, or D. It could have been 1, 2, 3, or 4, or whatever nomenclature they chose, A, B, C, D. So for this consist, we're going to go with B for Bogota. So we're going to push B. Now this first one here, this is going to be my lead unit. So I have all of my functionality there. You can see I'm in forward. And then this is my functions button right there. So the next unit I'm going to fire up is 2026. So I'm going to take 2026. I'm going to hit my chain link there. And again, you can see this. So when I hit B, you'll see my throttle disappears. I have no more independent control because the locomotive knows, or the app knows, the locomotive is part of this consist. So I have 2 questions here. Is this a rear loco, and is this facing forward or facing backward? Well, at this moment in time, it is a rear loco. So we would hit face backwards. But before I do that, we're going to simulate this kind of in a real world scenario. So I'm going to turn this one off, and we're going to grab these locomotives. So I've got 3 locos here, and you see there's a space between them. And I'm going to go ahead and consist these locomotives one at a time so you can see how easy it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this other camera kind of over here so you get 2 perspectives on what we're doing. So my lead unit I can leave in consist B since it's by itself. It doesn't really change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my function screen. We're going to blow our air horn signal, so we're going to go in reverse. We're going to turn on our bell. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and increase in the reverse direction, speed step 1 or 2. You hear it throttle up. We're going to release our brakes, and then we're going to go moving over. And you can see, then we can feather our brakes on and off. And then we're here ready to go. Bring our throttle down. Now, we got to check to make sure that the loco is coupled. Now, in the real world, they'd have to check to make sure the pin dropped. So what we're going to do is we're going to move forward, blow our whistle signal, turn on our bell, go to speed step 1, release the brakes. And as we pull, we can see we have the coupler tight. And so now the pin's dropped. So we're going to go ahead and blow our stop whistle signal, turn off the bell, bring the throttle to 0. Now we're going to add this other locomotive. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab the other camera here just to show you again kind of over the shoulders. Again, I'm trying not to get too much glare in the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the consist function there, consist B. And like I said, right now we have rear loco and then facing backwards. So that's good, we know that. So now with my models, because I'm that guy, we're going to add our MU cable. So we're going to put this MU cable in there, and this is the magnetic MU cables you can get from Pacific Western. You can also get your SoundTraxx products there, but that adds a little extra bit of realism, and below that you can see the magnetic air hoses that are connected there as well. So now we've got our locomotives together, we've got them consisted. So now we're going to go in reverse, we're going to pick up the third loco. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to move in reverse, we're going to blow our whistle, our air horn, turn on our bell, we're going to go to speed step 2, turn on our brakes, or release our brakes, go to speed step 1, and whoop, we missed. So now I got to change directions, pull away, set my brakes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these knuckles to make sure they're kind of better aligned and hopefully be able to catch them this time around. So now we're going to blow our air horn, turn on our bell, we're going to go in reverse, release the brakes, and this time I'm going to cheat a little bit. There we go. So now we're connected. Now we're going to pull the pin to make sure. We're going to go in forward, bell, go to speed step 1, reduce the brakes, and our pin's dropped. So now we can add in the Now we can add in the MU cable here. And now we're going to add the other locomotive using the app. So again, I'm going to grab this other camera over here. And like I said, hopefully you guys can see this clear enough. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this right now. So now I'm going to grab I'm going to make sure we're stopped this time. So now the third loco, 2121, which is my rear unit right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add it to the consist. And again, whoops, wrong button, consist B. Now you can see it's a rear loco, and you'll notice the other one automatically took notification of a mid loco because it knows I picked up. So you have rear loco facing backward. In this case, this loco is actually facing forward. So there you go. There's our consist. So now we're going to go ahead and set our brakes on all the units to make sure they work together. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and turn on our headlight. We got our headlight on. Then I'm going to come over here and turn on my front class lights, my front number boards, and my ground truck lights. You can see they're all illuminated on the front unit only, not on the rear units or any of that. So now when I blow my whistle signal, turn on my bell, all that's coming out of this guy. So now when I start moving forward, we can increase our speed and then release the brakes. Then all three units work together and we can crank it up. And since they have that dynamic exhaust, you actually get to hear that the locomotives are working together. And then when we set the brakes, they all set the brakes together in unison because they're working together as a single locomotive. Now with the BlueNami app, you can consist any number of locomotives you want. So what's really great is here at the end, let's say we got to the end of our run. Now there's a button here, so we're going to go ahead and turn off all the lights on the lead unit just for this case. Now when I put this away, you'll see right here for 2021, which is our 2121, which is my rear unit, you see this button down there that says make lead. Now let's say we're headed back to the yard or the depot or whatever after the turn. So we just push this button, make lead, and the app automatically changes directions. But we just need to make sure that we're in the reverse direction since this is the lead unit. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and turn on our functions, which is on my locomotives, you have the rear headlight there and the rear class light. So I don't have the rear number boards on this guy yet. So you can see that they're on. So now when we move in reverse, go ahead and blow our whistle signal because this is now the forward direction. We're going to go ahead and increase the throttle, release the brakes, and you can see that the locomotives again now all work together, but now we're getting the bell and horn out of this guy instead of this guy because the app does all the work intelligently behind the scenes for you. And so that's one of the greatest advantages of using the BlueNami is that now all of your functions and all your settings are basically done by the app. And so when I set the brakes now, all the brakes set on my locomotives, I bring the throttle down, and now I'm headed that way, so my train would be here. So if I did switching at a turn and then went back the other way, I don't have to recalculate CVs. I don't have to live with the horn coming out of the rear unit because the engineers would have gotten out and gone to the lead unit because the horn you want to come out of the lead because that's what's going to enter the crossing first. If cars hear the horn coming from a distance behind, say either behind the freight cars or from a second or third locomotive, they may think they have another second to get across that crossing. And so they want the horn and bell to come out of the lead unit so that way it's more evident that it's right at the crossing. So this is just one of the many advantages of using the BlueNami app, and the Apple version does this app consisting the same way. You can go into your settings and play with it now. So this is one of the many reasons why I encourage you to try out the new BlueNami. So now with that, I'm going to go ahead and mute these guys because the last thing I want to talk to you about is our YouTube channel. Now, we've been posting a lot of videos over the last several years, videos every single week about highlighting specific features of the decoder, whether it's how to select the horn, how to select the bell, how to adjust the volumes, how to set up dynamic digital exhaust, how to set up the braking rate, as I showed you here with this consisted group of locomotives. Now, these are all settings that you can go in and adjust, but we do YouTube videos on them because we understand that not everybody wants to read everything. Not everybody can be a bookworm like Norman would have been if he was still here. But anyway, so not everybody wants to read the manuals, and the manuals can be a little dry. But first off, make sure you're getting the user's guide, and please start with chapter 1. But in this video, we've got a lot of, or in our YouTube channel, we have a lot of great videos, and we're starting a series on lighting where I'm talking about all the details of locomotive lighting, what it means, and it's actually indicating, similar to the way a signal would be on the side of the tracks. The signals on the locomotive, the lights and everything mean something. For example, the clear class lights on this particular consist that I showed you here today actually would mean that this train was scheduled as an extra, or written up as an extra, not a scheduled train on the roster or on the timetable. So if you were meeting a train, say extra 2121, since right now at this moment this is our lead, then when you see that train pass with the number boards illuminated and the clear class lights, you can be sure that that's the train you're waiting for, extra 2121. So once that train clears, you're now permission to do whatever the dispatcher told you to do. So I encourage you to check out that series. Be sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and click that notification bell so that you'll get notified every time we have a new video posted live. Now, the last thing I'll close off with is that we do have a new support person here. His name is Graham Zielinski, and he's been with us now for a few weeks as of this recording. He will be coming onto our podcast. He just didn't want to do it the first time, his first week here. So we wanted to welcome him on board, and feel free to reach out. Graham himself is a modeler, and I'll have him introduce himself when he comes on this podcast in the next couple of episodes. But he is a very smart young kid. He's really eager, and he really loves helping you. And he's already picked up a ton in the couple of weeks he's been here. So be sure to welcome him, and feel free to reach out and call him. So the good news is we didn't really lose much time with that. We lost Norman's experience, but we've got Graham's experience. It's a little bit different, and he's a quick learner as well. So we should be up and going with him pretty quick. But the good news is if he doesn't know the answer, he's not just going to give you something. He'll go look it up, find the answer, ask one of us, and he'll come over and give you the answer. So we'll be having him on the podcast before too much longer. So anyway, guys, that's everything I've got planned for this particular episode. I appreciate you sticking around with me. I know it was a little bit me talking to the camera and talking to you folks out there. So hopefully it was entertaining enough. I know we didn't have the banter between Norman and I, but we'll start giving Graham a hard time once he comes on the podcast. So that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. This has been Train Talk from Milepost 141. Geez, I can't even speak right now. Milepost 141. This is our SoundTraxx Soundbites podcast, and we're signing off for you. We hope everybody has a great Christmas and holiday season and a very happy new year, and we'll see you guys in 2025.